Hi everyone, I'm Paul Unger, editor of Placetech. We're here today with Ben Harris from Equiem and Abigail Dean from Nuveen. We're going to talk about delivering offices for Generation Z and why that's so important in real estate today and into the future. We're at MIPIM 2022, and I'll start with you, Ben. How important is getting tech right to Generation Z today?
So I think there are two factors that are important when it comes to getting the tech right for Gen Z. So first of all, one of the most important things to Gen Z is experience. And so the environment is first the foremost factor in terms of getting things right. But secondly, they're digital natives. So they've grown up expecting tech to be part of their everyday life. And so bringing those two things together is absolutely crucial to make sure that talent pool are buying into the environment they work in.
And where does that position landlords? How are landlords responding to the changing needs of occupiers these days?
Well, I think the age of the passive landlord is dead, really, particularly when it comes to offices. So landlords have to take an active role in curating the right experience for occupiers in the office. They have to ensure that the buildings are tech enabled so that occupiers are able to put in place the different technology solutions that they want. And they have to think about the layout of offices as well, ensuring that they're offering those people coming back into the office the right kind of environment to collaborate and enable them to do the things that they want to do in the office in comparison with maybe more quieter, more focused working activities at home. It's really about putting the stakeholders at the centre of this. So thinking about what are the needs of the occupier businesses and what are the needs of the individuals in that office. And that's maybe not a position that landlords have traditionally had to put themselves in. So providing space as a service, understanding how the space is actually going to be used, and doing a little bit more research into actually thinking about what are people's experiences in the office going to look like, and how is the space set up to support that in the best way.
Being more proactive, you say. And why is catering to Gen Z so important then?
Well, we've seen over the last few years that Gen Z are coming into the workplace. Depending on which statistics you believe, they already make up between 25 to 40% of the current workforce. So that's only going to increase in the coming years, and so they're a really crucial audience, a talent pool that occupiers need to tap into, and therefore landlords need to understand their role in that as well.
And how is Nuveen changing the way it delivers offices in this context?
We've put a lot of emphasis on rolling out things such as tenant experience apps across our offices. So in the last couple of years, we've rolled out 28 of those to buildings in the US, and we've got 5 in office buildings across Europe now. That's only going to grow. We're also really looking at the way that we work with occupiers to position their space within the buildings. So what the layout looks like, and ensuring that there's enough amenity in place as well to really provide the right environment for those individuals coming back into the office.
And similarly, is well-being important in that amenity and getting that right?
Yeah, I think well-being is really critical. I think both in terms of the amenity that's provided. So a lot of emphasis now on the provision of gyms and the right kind of food services, but also that more underlying base level of health and well-being. So looking at natural light and good air quality. We're part of a programme rolling out Fitwel certification across our office portfolio. So we're a Fitwel champion, and we have a large number, about 42 different certified buildings now using Fitwel. And that's really the base level. It gives a lot of confidence to occupiers to know that we've got a credible approach to health and well-being in the offices.
And we've heard a lot about flex and flexible offices, co-working, different names. Over the last few years, for obvious reasons. Is having a flex element in an office important these days?
Yeah, I would say having a flex space in the office is becoming more and more important. And again, if we're talking about Gen Z, they expect to see that. They expect to have this kind of flexibility. They expect that the whole experience of a workplace will adapt around their needs. So absolutely, and it's just going to continue to grow.
As occupiers are in this position where they're not entirely sure at the moment just how much office space they're going to use. They're maybe moving into a slightly different environment where they have employees working 2 or 3 days in the office. They're not yet quite sure whether they're going to be providing permanent desks to all of their staff. Being able to have an element of flex provision within their office building can really help them to expand or contract into that. So it's something that is really looked on favourably by occupiers and is a way that landlords can help occupiers to manage that transition into the more hybrid working environment.
And you mentioned about layout earlier on and getting the design right. How are you tweaking the layout for Gen Z in office space, workspace?
I think in terms of tweaking the office space for Gen Z, there's got to be an acknowledgement that the office is being used in a different way now. So prior to the COVID pandemic, you came into the office every day. That's where you did everything. Now there is inevitably going to be a difference in that. People will be doing certain types of work at home, certain types of work in the office, and the office probably becomes more of a space for collaboration. Therefore, office design is going to have to adapt to meet that need. So there will be more emphasis on collaborative spaces, on coffee spaces, on meeting rooms, but maybe slightly more casual. So it's not just shutting yourself away in a meeting room. It's about having a working space where you can get a coffee and have a catch up with some colleagues and get some work done as well. So definitely we'll see that type of workspace emerge. But I think as well, we really need to give people something positive to come back to the office for. So it's also about just good design and interesting spaces. Whilst tech is important, the actual attractiveness of a space is really important as well. And we do expect to see tenants more and more looking for places that are architecturally interesting, maybe heritage buildings or unusual buildings, and places that have something to offer and have a bit of authenticity.
That's great. And what about the carbon question? Is that on the agenda for Gen Z?
I think the carbon question is absolutely crucial. That generation is really concerned, rightly so, about climate change, and they do expect to see their employers doing something about it. And for many occupiers, their office is a manifestation of their brand. It says a lot about who they are. So I think what that means is that employees will expect to see their office being very clearly a green office, a net zero carbon office, and that will really tell prospective and current employees something about the values of that organisation.
And similarly, Ben, we hear a lot about the war for talent. Abigail's touched on some of the themes there. Are you hearing occupiers talking about the office when it comes to talent?
Yeah, certainly. And one interesting development we've seen is landlords clawing back space that was previously occupied to create that kind of environment. So to be able to put amenity into the space, to be able to create spaces where people can collaborate, that kind of environment that the talent that they're trying to bring into the businesses is looking for. And so yeah, it's quite an interesting play that they would use space that previously they were able to generate income from to make the workplace more attractive for their entire occupier base.
And is using apps part of the talent retention piece as well?
It certainly is, yeah. Going back to some of the things we spoke about earlier, the use of apps helps an occupier and the landlord to create an environment that also operates in the digital world as well. And we've talked about flex work and people being able to work from home. Well, by having an app and having a desktop app as well as a mobile app, it creates an environment where people, if they're working from home or in the building, are connected to their community, they're connected to their colleagues, and they can do the kind of interaction, particularly Gen Z who've grown up using apps, expecting technology to be something that's at their fingertips. It brings it into the workplace.
And can that link up front of house with the users, with the back of house and the property managers?
Yeah, that's absolutely where it's going. So you can use that app to bring together all of the different services in the building and ensure that all of the different property managers, facilities managers, engineers, and the community managers who are working to provide a good service in that building can all be brought together into that app to give a seamless service to the occupier.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for joining me, Ben Harris from Equiem, Abigail Dean from Nuveen. Thank you.